Okay, so I see that we are now streaming live on YouTube. I would like to welcome everyone to the November 5th Windsor Unified School District Board of Trustees meeting. We are live on YouTube. For those of you that are following, we appreciate you coming along for the ride here, and we hope that we can review this later and see any comments that you might want to share. I mentioned earlier before we opened our closed session that we do have public comment time. And if you have a comment you'd like to be shared, please email jcox@wusd.org, and we can have those available prior to each meeting. So at this time, I'd like to open the meeting, and I'd ask Jenny to do a roll call for us, please.
President Heights.
Here.
Vice President Ahmad.
Here.
Trustee Adams.
Here.
Trustee Carnation.
Here.
Trustee Valenzuela. Student Board member Ava Hammelberg.
Okay, so I did get notice that Trustee Valenzuela will be here shortly. He was held up at work, and we did see Ava earlier. Hopefully she'll, oh, she is here. I'm sorry, I didn't recognize the picture there. So Ava's here with us, great. So at this time, Trustee Carnation, I'd like to ask you to lead us in the flag salute. If we could share our flag on the screen, I'd appreciate that. So everybody that's in the meeting can go on mute, and we'll let Trustee Carnation lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate that. Superintendent Decker, do we have a report out of closed session tonight? Anything important to share?
We do not have plenty of things that are important to share, but nothing to report out of closed session tonight.
Thank you. Yes. All right. So our meeting opens with item 4, which is the opening item section. And the first is 4.1, adjustments to the agenda. I haven't received any asking for adjustments, but is there someone who would like to make an adjustment at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll keep the agenda as is listed. Thank you. Item 4.2, as we like to do often, is a celebrating success. And we have here today Windsor High School Principal Lamar Collins, and he would like to present some items to the board about things that are happening at the high school. Welcome, Dr. Collins.
Thank you, sir, and thank you everyone here for being here. Welcome, board, and everyone I see some of the people being recognized today, so it's good, and I just got a email that another one is on his way. So, Jen, if you could share the screen, please. I think someone's in the waiting room as well. There he is. Are we good?
I'm having trouble with my mouse, and so it's taking me a little bit longer to load things, but bear with me.
Not a problem.
Here we go.
Okay, good. I was about to tell a corny science joke.
Can you see it?
I cannot.
You cannot see it.
Okay, here's a corny math joke. Somebody say it's cold outside.
It's cold outside.
Stand in the corner, it's 90 degrees. Get it? 90 degrees, okay. That's why I'm a teacher and not a comedian.
Hey, Brad, can you help me out here? Because I cannot get this to load at all. My mouse just is not cooperating. I'm so sorry.
If you can share with me, Brad, I have a copy of it as well.
Oh, you're getting set up. I bought a joke book this year. And every Zoom meeting, we start with jokes, but Reed has really taken to the joke. You want to tell him a joke? Tell him elephant in a car seat joke.
What do you call elephant in the car seat?
What do you call an elephant in a car seat?
I don't know, Reed. What do you call an elephant in a car seat?
Stuck.
They're stuck.
Well done.
All right, so let me present the celebration of success. I think you guys can see my screen. Is that correct? Yes. Celebration of success at Windsor Middle School. There are a lot of great things going on. Let me first by acknowledging a couple of students. One is Ethan Lane. We had 2 merit scholars here. Here's why that's important. There are about 1.5 million students that take the PSAT. The top 50,000 are called National Merit Scholars. They get commended. Ethan Lane was one, and Philip Kwame was another one. If you'll notice, Officer JP Tamayo was there. I got to give props to Officer Tamayo. He and I go out often to talk to kids, encourage kids, and he's just been a tremendous asset to the Windsor USD. So I just want to send a shout out to the Windsor PD for sending us Officer Tamayo. He's a tremendous asset to us and our students. We also had a national semifinalist. That means he scored in the top 0.5%. Landon scored in the top 0.5% of those taking the PSAT. Awesome accomplishment. So great things are going on at Windsor High School. What that tells me is that if you want it, it's here to get it. So very proud of our students, very proud of our teachers. The next group I want to recognize, the VA Soul Corps and their garden cleanup. Now, many of you, many people on the Zoom have been on the campus and you saw the shape the gardens were in. They were not in good shape. And Lisa Hadley Hill, she would call me and say, Dr. Collins, can we please get some students on campus? They want to clean up the garden. And I said, Lisa, we cannot have students on campus. And she said, you know what? We can fix that. So Lisa Hadley Hill, she dragged her husband Ron with her, Karen Wilkinson, Dana Grant, Nadine McCoy, Mike Sweeney, Mary Burkhart, and this little guy here is Jackson, her son. They came up on a weekend and cleaned the garden, and that's what it looks like now. I promise you, it did not look like that before their efforts. It just shows you the type of community that we have where they just make things happen. They see something that needs to be done and they do it. Very appreciative to the teachers of Windsor High School. So thank you, VA Soul. The next group I want to recognize is the Bill Corps. Now you see these 4 guys here. That's Mr. Browder, our mayor, Mr. Carnation, and myself. Okay, I don't know why we took the picture because none of us really did a whole lot of work, but we kind of were on the paper and got the credit for it. The real people who made it go from here to here, that would be James, Grace Curtin-Fiano, Marie Gannister. So big prop to those ladies. Bill Corps was just an opportunity, and Grace and Marie, they said, you know what, let's make this opportunity a reality with the help of the Rotary Club and some more sponsors. We see the building is now there on a plot of land that was just grass. So that's a big plus for the high school. I believe Bill Corps is going to serve a lot of students. I believe it's going to create a lot of superintendents and foremen and just some leaders in the construction industry in Sonoma County. So I'm very proud of that. Finally, drum roll, please. I want to introduce to you the absolute best teacher of Sonoma County, the one, the only John Richards himself. The guy's a one of a kind. He's not just a teacher. He's an excellent educational mind. He's a student advocate. What I love about John, he's not just an advocate for those that do well. He's an advocate for those who typically don't use their voice or are afraid to use their voice. He's a tremendous asset to Windsor High School. And with that being said, that is our Windsor High School celebration. Thank you for all of those who are part of the celebration, who are on the Zoom call. In the community of Windsor and school board, I have to let you know that Windsor High School is in great hands, and it's because of the teachers that are here. They love this community. The administrators here love this community, and I'm just proud, blessed, and overjoyed to be a part. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Collins. I know that you mentioned, and I saw him with the little guy there and his dad joke about the elephants. Is Mr. Richards still on the meeting? He could give us a little feedback on how he was nominated and what the process was and how he'll be honored by the Press Democrat.
Yeah, I think it started as a prank. I think one of my former students nominated me, and then started like a grassroots social media campaign yet. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously, it's a tremendous honor because it's a democratic process. So to be recognized, not necessarily by Sonoma County, but by my students, the alumni, and my colleagues, I am incredibly humbled. And I told Dr. Collins earlier, I feel very seen right now, and that feels nice. But I'm one piece of this very massive machine, and so I feel lucky, and I'm passing off the child. So just thank you guys for the time today. I appreciate it.
Well, we very much appreciate you and the work that you do at the Nueva Corps and putting on the presentations and the plays and all the student outreach that you do and the advocacy that you have for your class and your students at the school. And so I personally would like to thank you on behalf of the board. And if there are any others on the board that would like to make a comment to Mr. Richards, I'd open the floor. I can't see
Hey,
you all
John.
now because of the screen share, but I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, I like the pictures on the screen share too. John, congratulations, and thank you very much, Dr. Collins, for that update on the great things going on at the school. There's one other piece that I'll share. I did not realize, and as an arts fan, I was embarrassed to say I didn't know it. About maybe 3 or 4 Sundays ago, the Press Democrat had a student art insert in the Sunday paper, and I saw there was at least one Windsor student, and it was a grappler, a wrestler of some note, Savannah Berger, who's a junior, who had one of the 11th grade art pieces that were in there. So our students and all over the district, but particularly out of the high school, are everywhere doing everything, even in these challenging times. So thanks very much to everybody who's working so hard there. And again, kudos to you, Richards, for getting the thumbs up with the crew. That's great. Congratulations.
I'll echo Bill's comments and say thank you to Dr. Collins for the presentation. It's good to see you. John Richards, congratulations. That's awesome that your students started that campaign to get that award. And I think it's awesome that the democratic process played out that way and that you are being recognized. And then I just wanted to acknowledge Marie Gannister, who I see here, Grace Curtin, Amy Ziegler, Pete Stefanisco. Thank you for all of the hard work and the great things that you're doing at Windsor High School.
If I can, I'm not sure if you guys can see or whatever, because my screen is just single, but anyhow, yeah, congratulations, John. That's awesome to be recognized by your students to where they will go above and beyond. Is quite a testament all by itself. And thank you for your hard work. Thanks for making the difference in the kids' lives, and thanks for putting a nice shine on Windsor and the nice things that are going on. Thanks, Dr. Collins. I appreciate you guys going out and personally going to the different students that have achieved some high marks in the PSAT. That's got to be a thrill for them. It's a thrill for us. It's like you said, I like what you said, where if you want it, Windsor's got it and you can get it here. That's always been my thoughts and comments to any parents and people that have wanted to go around. And to Grace and Marie, they have different horsepower in a lot of different machines. And you two are dragsters. You've got so much horsepower, and I appreciate all that energy that you guys put in to get this program across the finish line, or at least to the starting line is more like it, to where all these things. I'm just super excited about all the opportunities and all the future students at the high school. How they are. It's going to be life changing for a lot of people. And so I just want to make sure that you two are acknowledged again, because everybody does their job. What makes this place so special is all the added value that everybody brings to all the things, and having this new opportunity for all the students to come in. That's added value to a lot of people's lives, And it's because of the extra effort you guys put in that you didn't need to. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, well,
I wanted
again, I
to
would like to
add
go ahead.
one more quick comment.
Yes.
I forgot to acknowledge Officer Tamayo. He actually went to school around the same time as me. I'm a couple years older than him. And it's so gratifying to see him now grown up and in this new role and how he's contributed to the high school in his role as a law enforcement officer. I think he's added so much, and I just love his approach to the role. I know he's not on the call, but I wanted to acknowledge him because he, I think, has brought a lot to his position, and it's cool that he's a Windsor alum.
All right, well, very good, guys. I appreciate you being here tonight. The leadership is strong. The atmosphere is hopefully optimistic for the future with Windsor High School, and we are looking to bigger and better things as we keep going here. So again, we appreciate you coming tonight for celebrating success. And at this time, I think we will move on in our agenda so that we can get to some meat in the
Eric,
issues. So thank you for attending.
I don't know
Yes,
if you can
Rich?
hear Eric. Is Marie and Grace, are they here? Do they want to say anything about that or not? I don't know if they were. I can't tell on the screen if they're here before we
If
leave.
either of you would like to speak about the program that you've worked on there or other things, please open yourself up.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, President Heights. It's just really exciting and an honor to create new programs for our students that will have a tremendous impact, not just on Windsor, not just in Sonoma County, but also throughout the state in such a much needed industry. So we're particularly grateful for RC and James and Lois for your support, and Rotary for their continuous enthusiasm and help. And we are also very grateful to the district office, Superintendent Decker, and the board for really catching and supporting it. We're going to be changing lives starting January with our first course, and then as students move through the pathway. So thank you. And it's always an honor to work with Marie.
I would just like to say thank you to the board for having us, and to Dr. Collins for speaking about the Build Academy. It's going to be a really positive thing for students, and it's why Grace and I both dedicated much time to seeing this to fruition, and we're close. We're really close. And on January, when those kids are on that first Zoom call, I think I need to sneak on or something. I've got to see it in action. And Rotary Club is our best friend in this project, besides Rich Carnation, who's our other best friend. But it's truly wonderful to see the community come together around this concept. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks again, ladies and everybody, for being here to honor Windsor High and to share the good news of things that are going on there. We are going to move forward with our agenda. So I appreciate you being here. If you'd like to stay, we'd be more than happy to have you, but I understand you've got a lot going on. If you'd like to leave, we won't be offended. So we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Yes. So at this time, we will move on to item 4.3, which is public comment on open session items. I did receive a public comment that will be shared tonight. So let me get to the right spot here. So this is a letter saying, "Dear WUSD school board members and Superintendent Decker, online learning is much better than in the spring. Thank you. Online learning is a short-term measure, and the longer it continues, the greater the deficits. Please maintain a laser-like focus on returning students to school as safely as possible. Every penny of the district budget should be going to the efforts to get students and teachers back together, not to extracurricular programs such as sports, music, or art. Sports are good, but education should come first, similar to the state's phased reopening. Sports and music are higher risk activities because of increased respiratory activity from working out or playing an instrument. Students' grades are reflecting the adversity of online learning. Please consider changing the schedule of students with multiple classes, parenthetically the middle school and the high school, to a 6 or 12-week rotation with fewer classes at a time. This would help foster connection in the online program, as well as transition better to hybrid learning, because students would be a pod for the 6 to 12-week period. Lastly, testing was an obstacle specifically cited in your previous letter. I contacted public health and they will definitely assist in any positive cases. For surveillance testing, health insurers are required to cover COVID tests for essential workers like teachers, and the company called Curative will do this at no cost to the employee or business. I know our county is still in the purple tier and cannot reopen at all. Please use this time to prepare for a future return that students and parents both need. Thank you for your leadership during this time. Sincerely, Amy and Matt Windrum. And they put a postscript saying, we are willing to and able to volunteer if needed. Parent volunteers can be a part of the solution. So I thank those people for their comments and their letter. The board has received a copy of that, and we will ask Superintendent Decker to consider those things as we move forward with our reopening plan. Did anyone else receive a public comment that I was not aware of? Okay, so seeing none, we'll move on in our agenda. And another exciting thing we always like to do is to have a student report from our student board member, Ava Hamelberg, and she has a slideshow she'd like to share. So if we can get a screen share for Ava, that would be appreciated. And you're welcome to start anytime, Ava. Congratulations on being here again.
Great, thank you. My internet is a little choppy right now, so I'm just gonna try and push through it. So yes, this is my report for today's meeting.
Ava, it's a little bit difficult to hear. If you could move closer or hold your mic up a bit, thank you.
Is this better? Okay, so Senator Mike McGuire came not to visit, but on a Zoom to for Hope Now, which was his goal was basically to come speak to 6th through 12th graders in the Windsor district and to kind of promote maintaining hope for the future. It was really interesting, especially because I at least noticed many high schoolers were attending and watching. It was a student-led panel with 3 high school students, and Senator McGuire really stressed the importance of young voters. And I know that especially at the high school level and middle school level, that there are many of us who can't vote yet. And so he said, even if you can't cast a ballot, you can choose where to spend your money and you can help influence the world that way. He also addressed the effects of climate change and wildfires, because that is a big issue, especially with people at the high school. There's many groups who are dedicated to promoting awareness about the environmental issues right now. So he spoke very well on those effects, and also just on telling us that COVID is going to be temporary, and that if you continue to have hope for the future, you can get through it and come out the other end having learned something. So that was Senator McGuire's presentation. And if we go to the next slide, please. Then Congressman Jared Huffman came to speak to the AP Corps, and he spoke to us about promoting environmental awareness, about how he entered the political world, and how students my age can do the same if that's a career that they want to choose. And then he also just very much emphasized the importance of staying educated and informed in order to be a productive member of a democracy, which was very enlightening. And he also was very good about not dumbing anything down. He spoke to us as members of the society who want to be involved, and it was really refreshing. If you go to the next slide. So things happening at Windsor High. We had another club carnival on the 28th, which was really great. It's all over Zoom, of course, but it's been a really good way of getting students engaged, because with everything so focused on school and us trying to do our best to maintain our grades, just being able to be exposed to these extracurriculars is really has been a really good way to find another outlet and to find a way to stay productive and to do something while we're stuck at home. And then we also had a virtual rally on the 30th that highlighted some of our sports teams and just things that leadership is planning on doing. We also had a countywide leadership conference on Wednesday, so yesterday, and the one that we hosted on September 4th, so earlier this year, had 125 plus students. We had another one yesterday that was hosted by a different school, but it's a really good way of getting schools throughout the county to collaborate on engaging students. We can go to the next slide. Okay, I'll just speak because I don't think it updated when I added it. Windsor Middle School also hosted a trunk or treat on, I believe, Friday. I was told that between 400 and 500 cars showed up. The Windsor Middle School partnered with Chicano Trucking, and that there's a really great turnout. I had some pictures, but I don't think it updated in time, but there were some really creative trunks, and it was just a really fun way with a great turnout to kind of engage the community in a safe way, because we all love Halloween, and this was a really great way to kind of have another event that would help promote that spirit that we didn't have in the normal way. So that's it.
Well, thank you very much, Ava. I appreciate your report. I made sure not to take your thunder there. I was going to mention the Hope Now program, because I was a part of that panel that day with Senator McGuire and some of your student colleagues and some of the Windsor staff as well, the high school staff. It was great to be asked to be part of that, and I appreciated all the hard work that everybody put in on that project. And I've talked to Superintendent Decker, and we're planning to bring the students and the staff advisors for celebrating success at one of our future meetings in December. So we will be able to honor those students individually, and I know that the meeting that day was recorded, and so hopefully, if it hasn't yet been posted on our district website, we can have that added to let anybody that would like to observe that and watch the presentation and the discussions that were going on. It was a great day, an hour or so that was candid conversations with the highly energetic State Senator McGuire. So thank you again for your report. Does anybody else like to discuss something with Ava? Now's a good chance. Okay, we're getting thumbs up. All right. Thank you.
I do just want to say thank you to Ava, and I know that you were kind of putting together a group of students who was going to give feedback to you on a regular basis, and I was wondering if you could give a status update on how that's going, or if there's anything the board can do to support you in making that happen.
Yes, it's not in the presentation because a lot of the big developments actually happened today. I have a very solid roster for middle through high school, and I'm super excited. I've been talking to all the students. I know many of them, they're my classmates or they're classmates of my friends. I know most of them, and they're just such a fun group. And they've already been just coming to me throughout the school year, just being like, hey, maybe you should add this. Have you considered this? Do people know that we're feeling like this? And it's just such a good group already, and I'm so excited about it. I'm currently working on my 4th and 5th graders from Brooks Elementary and Cali, so I'm trying to get that group together. But as for the high schoolers, we are planning on meeting on November 9th with the freshmen and sophomores, and November 11th with the juniors and seniors. So the meeting after that, I should have a great new report, and I'll be able to introduce you all to my new committee.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ava, for all your hard work, going above and beyond to support the students and give them a voice at the school board level. We appreciate your your participation. All right, we're going to move forward in our agenda. Item 4.5 is the approval of the minutes from the meeting on September 17th of 2020, the minutes of the meeting from September 21st, and from October 6th, all in 2020. Those minutes are attached. If the trustees have had a chance to review, if there are any changes, now would be the time to mention that.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Trustee Adams.
I'll second. Oh,
I had a quick
Yes.
comment on one of the minutes. I don't know which one, Eric. There's no ending time. It says the meeting was adjourned. I'm not sure which one it is, but there's no time on it. So we need to go back and add a time to one of those minutes. I'm not sure which one it is.
Okay, thank you for catching that. I keep records of the time and the motions and things. So if Jen doesn't have that, we can get together to figure that and fix that.
yeah,
So,
I have
Bill, could we
another comment really quickly before we vote. In this agenda item, there are a couple other documents included in item 4.5. Two seem to be public comments. Were those supposed to be included in a different section?
Well, I included them because they went with those minutes. They were public comments that went with those minutes.
Oh, got it. Then do we need to read those before we vote to approve?
Well, they were public comment at those meetings.
Oh, they were public comment at those meetings. Okay.
It's just to make
Understood.
it easier for people to see what the public comment was. I just attached the emails that I received.
Okay, thanks, Jen. My confusion.
Okie doke.
No, yeah.
And I
So,
will
yeah,
go back
I
and
had read
find
those
that
out at the time during the meeting, so that way the public knows what the comments were, since they weren't there necessarily to speak it themselves. We read it out during the meeting. So, Bill, you've made a motion. Can we amend that to include the change in the time that we'll find later and approve the minutes that way? And then I will be taking a second motion of approval of the minutes from those dates. Anybody ready to do that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Ahmad. So all those in favor of approving the minutes from September 17, September 21, and October 6th, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, so those minutes will be approved, and we'll go back and make the amendment, and that will satisfy the missing piece that George found for us. Thank you, sir. Okay, moving down the line here, item 5 is our consent action item section. So I will ask Vice President Ahmad to lead us through items 5.1 through 5.8. So please take over for us, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you, President Heights. We'll move to item 5, consent action items. Item 5.1 is consideration of approval of consent items, and then looks like we have 7 items today. I'll read those one by one. Item 5.2, consideration of approval of thank you letters for donation from the community. Item 4.3, consideration of approval on contract batch 11-5-2020. Item 5.4, consideration of approval of temporary administrative job assignment. This item has been prepared by Chris Canalake, Director of Human Resources. Item 5.5, consideration of approval of change order number 01 to American Modular Systems for the 17 new modular classroom building project. Item 5.6, consideration of approval of Kalikameka Language Academy portable replacement proposal for geotechnical and geological hazards investigation. Item 5.7, consideration of approval of district warrants, October 16th to October 31st, 2020. And item 5.8, consideration of approval of the review of the Redwood Empire School Insurance Group Self-Insurers 2019 to 2020 report. I will make the first motion. I'll ask for a second motion, and then we will open it up for discussion if there is any. Do I have a second motion?
I'll second the consent calendar. And I do have a couple comments. One on 5.2, I know we talked about adopting and moving forward with a thank you letter recognition commitment to do that feedback to generous donors. I just wondered why it's on for approval. That's one question. It seems to me it's a great letter. I hope we're not going to do editing as a group of letters that are being written, but I like that we're doing the thank you letters. The other is when we get a minute, if we could have Superintendent Decker and Dr. Canalate talk a little bit more about item 5.4. It was briefed by the superintendent a meeting or so ago as a best practice that some other districts are doing, but this is actually a COVID-19 communications and planning coordinator position, particularly in light of the one piece of public comment that we got. If we could talk about how we see that adding to our efforts while we're still in the purple tier through and the decisions we've made through this semester and going forward for the school year. So those are my two questions on 5.2 and 5.4.
So I'll speak to 5.2. So the board is supposed to approve all donations. So that's why it's on the agenda. Any donation that comes in has to be approved by the board. And then
Thank you, Dr. Collins, for that nice thank you letter. I think that's one of the first ones that we've seen, and that's a good thing. Good way to promote more donations is to give a vigorous thank you.
Oh, was that the letter? And then with regard to 5.4, if you looked at the duties as attached by Dr. Canlake, really what we're looking for or what we want to do is to make sure that we can organize all of the different pieces that principals have been addressing, directors, myself, into kind of one space. And that way, that is the go-to person for all things that are COVID. And there's just so many pieces that touch every department that it's kind of got us all scattered. And what we've had really good feedback from other districts regarding organizing this in one place so that people know where to go. So that was kind of the concept. Is that what you were asking for, Trustee Adams?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, we've looked at it as a 2.5-page document. I'd be sort of interested, since we have both staff union presidents on, if they have any thoughts about this, if they've maybe heard from their peers as leaders of other districts, labor groups, about this being a best practice or something that they would see as a positive development. I think it's a tremendous development, and something sadly we probably are going to need for a while. But I'd be interested also if Brad or Pete have any comments about it.
I haven't heard from any other districts doing this, but it certainly sounds like a good idea. We need somebody in charge because there are so many different layers to it and so many different protocols.
I had two questions, and on the 5.4 that Bill brought up. So it looks like the Windsor Middle assistant principal is going to be the COVID person or director or coordinator. What happens, Superintendent Decker, when we go back to hybrid and there's kids on campus? Does that person also do assistant principal duties, or what's going to happen? Because right now we don't have kids on campus. So what happened? What's the plan for if and when we go back to hybrid in next year?
I think the plan for now is that we're going to continue with just having a principal at Windsor Middle School just for this year, because it's really an unknown when we're coming back, Trustee Valenzuela, and we feel that this is such a great need right now.
Yeah.
And the current vice principal's skill set really lends itself to doing this job amazingly well. So we're pretty excited at having somebody of the quality as her to do this position.
Okay, sounds good to me. My question that I was going to ask is the Cali 5.6. It's a study to do a geological hazards investigation. They do soil samples. And yesterday at our board meeting, we talked about a 2-story building. It's the addition of a 1-story, maybe a larger 2-story, and the cost. We talked about that yesterday. So does it make sense for us to do this study now? Is there an expiration date? Because I don't know when we're going to break ground at the school. Will the study be stale by the time we start putting up the 2-story building? Is it better to wait and get the study done later? I'm not opposed to the study. I'm just trying to make sure we don't pay twice for the same study.
I don't think we'll need to do it again. And I think you'll be surprised at how quickly we can make our decisions and get this building up. That's the plan.
I'll be watching.
Okay.
I'm going to be a board watcher. All right. Those are my questions. Thank you.
And I think maybe in addition, George, the soil samples probably need to be done before we have a lot of winter weather. And so that might be part of the push, is to get that done earlier rather than having to wait till we have drainage issues and things like that. So. Any further questions or comments on items 5.2 through 5.8? Okay, so we have a first motion by trustee Ahmad, a second by trustee Adams. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, so it carries 5-0. Thank you, Stephanie, for leading us through those. Item 6 is our report and discussion section. And 6.1 is the school year 2020-2021 Windsor Unified School District Enrollment Update Report. And this will be presented by Allison Griggs, who is our Student Services Coordinator. Mr. Decker, is there anything you want to preface this with, or should we hand off to Allison right away?
No, let's jump in with Allison, and then as questions arise from the board, then I'll chime in.
Thank you. So
Thanks,
welcome,
Jeremy.
Allison. We're glad to have you back tonight. Please share with us the enrollment report.
Thank you. Jen, is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, it is, Allison.
Okay, we can see that okay? Good to go? Great. Thank you for having me. This is our Windsor Unified Student Enrollment and Demographics presentation. This is based on our CBEDS report. So our CBEDS data is going to be California Basic Education Data Systems report. And that is collected every October, the first Wednesday of October of each school year. There we go. On this first slide, you can see our enrollment over the past 10 school years. So again, this is collected every October. And this does include Cali. Cali is included in this data. I apologize, the numbers aren't showing up on each bar, but I do have those for you. If you need the PowerPoint presentation, your PDF does not include it. But I'm happy to give you the exact numbers that correspond with each of those years. I think some of the most important would be the most recent 2 years. So you can see the 2019 data was the first year we dropped below 5,000. And that number was 4,898 students. And then we dropped by 198 students to 4,700 in 2020, this October. And again, if you want every year, I'm happy to share that in the PowerPoint version with you. So then we're looking at our students by demographic. And so the majority of our students do classify as white or Hispanic. And so you can see that here over the past 5 years with incremental changes. And then we're going to dive into that data a little bit more thoroughly on this next slide, where you can see ethnicity. And this is based on just this school year, so just as of October 2020. So these are our demographics with percentages by year for the past 5 years. Or sorry, for just this year. The last one was the past 5 years. So if there aren't any questions, we're going to look at our school sites. I can't see everybody, so if you have a question, please chime in for me. But now we're going to look at our students based on the school site over the past 5 years as well. Sorry, this presentation there at the bottom got a little scrambled. So you can see each school, the North County Consortium program, then our school sites, and then at the end, we have our non-public school programs. So at the top of each set of data, you see the numbers. Those numbers represent the most recent years. So for example, at Cali, the numbers at the top, 1,177, that represents the purple bar, so the 2019 school year. 1,196 represents the yellow bar, so that is this school year as of 2020.
Allison, I had a quick question. It's George on the other side. As you know, we closed, the school board closed Windsor Creek, and on this chart it says Windsor Creek is for 17 and 18.
Mm-hmm.
So when we closed that school, as you know, the kids went to the other two schools,
Yep.
Brooks and Maddie. Did you see an increase in enrollment from those two schools? Because looking at the numbers for Maddie, it says 531, then it says 448. That's a drop.
Yeah.
Brooks, it says 553, then it's 531. shouldn't those numbers be higher than lower?
So where we left off with the reconfiguration, you can see the green bar there for 2018. That was the last year we had the Windsor Creek program. And so the following year, the 2019 school year, is the purple bar. So you can see that there was an increase at both Maddie Washburn and Brooks for that 2019 school year. Where you see the decrease again is going to be this school year, 2020. I do think a factor for Maddie Washburn is also that Callie Kamekek opened up a transitional kindergarten. And I know just from my perspective, because I worked with testing some of our students, many of the students that we would have had in TK at Maddie Washburn did start in the TK program at Callie. So I think that is part of the numbers that we see the increase at Callie for the 2020 school year. But yes, overall, we are seeing a decline from 19 to 20.
So at Maddie, we had a bump. It
Mhm.
went from green to purple to
Yep.
up to 531.
Mhm.
And then it went down to 448. And then at Brooks, it went from green to purple to yellow. So at both schools, we've had a drop.
At both schools, we've had a drop. Yes, we had the increase after we reconfigured and closed Windsor Creek. And then we have had a drop as of this school year.
Okay, thank you. I got it now. Thank you.
I wanted to mention that about Callie opening their transitional kindergarten class. I think that's about all I had for this data before we go on, unless there's any other questions. So the next thing we look at is our comparison from the start of each school year to the end of each school year. We look at that by site over the past 3 years. The first one is our NCC, North County Consortium Program. Then we have our Maddie Washburn data. You can also see the increase there from the 2018 school year, 2018-19 to the 2019-2020 school year. Again, that was where we had the reconfiguration with Windsor Creek. And keep in mind that this data is all going to be based on completed school years, so we won't have anything for this school year yet. Windsor Creek, where we left off, was only 2018-19 data because we didn't have Windsor Creek as of last year. Again, you see that bump for Brooks Elementary because of the reconfiguration. That's going to take us to the middle school and high school programs. So again, the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. We have the same information for Windsor Oaks Academy, North Bay Met Academy. At North Bay Met Academy, keep in mind that sometimes we have students transition as well from the high school into the North Bay Met Academy program. So we, over the past 2 years, there's also some numbers that adjust for Windsor Oaks because they have some students start and go back throughout the school year as well. So there's some transitions. We have Callie. And then that takes us to our charter program, Village Charter, over the past 5 years. And lastly, we just look at our students a little bit more in depth by grade level, so we can see those grade level bands of where we have more students or fewer students. This is in descending order, so our largest grade level classes right now are 11th and 12th grade. Our smallest is our transitional kindergarten, which makes sense. And that is all I have for you for this evening. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, this is Rich. So basically, our senior and junior class, the high school is 462.
Mm-hmm.
And our first grade class is 283. Second is 274. Kindergarten, we got a little bit more. So roughly, I mean, if we don't pick up students from out of the area, our district is
significantly fewer students at the lower levels.
In 12 years, we're going to be about half the size if we don't do something.
But also keep in mind, Rich, it's Lisa, And keep in mind that at the middle school level, we do tend to pick a chunk of kids back up every year who some are from out of district, but many reside within our district boundaries. And parents prefer a K-6 environment via, for example, Mark West instead of our cluster arrangement. And then they come back in 6th or sometimes 7th grade at the middle school level. And we regain anywhere from, well, we've started to pick it back up 30 to 50 students each year.
Gotcha. Thanks, Lisa. Allison, does this, for example, on this chart right here, does it include the Cali students also?
It does, yes.
Okay, so that's Cali and
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mark West has about 40 students per grade level roughly when I checked in with them. Our Windsor residents.
And we also have some local students that go to private schools, Windsor Christian, St. Rose, Hillsburg has the Hillsburg School, and St. John's Parochial, things like that. We get many of them back for our high school program as well.
But to your point, Rich, I mean, I think it's an obvious observation, right? Yeah, we have a problem with enrollment.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just with the I'm curious as to how many kids. I wonder if we could do a survey if it wouldn't cost much or anything, if there's a way to do it, just to kind of find out, how many kids are in Windsor. I mean, what is our native pool of students? I mean, is it, so for kindergarten, we have 286 here, is there another 100 kids that may be going somewhere else that probably, if they're smart, they'll come back down the road. And so, but even then, that's 286 plus another 100 kids, let's just say 400 kids. So I guess the point I'm trying to get to is that as they get older, I think over the next 10 years, I think Windsor High School is going to become more and more of a regional type school, because I think other school districts are going to have that same type of issue where they're going to have declining enrollment as well. And when they get into the older ages, parents are going to be looking for places where their kids can go and have opportunities in arts, sports, all the different extracurricular type things. I think we need to remember that even though these numbers in the lower grades look smaller, one of our big magnets is going to be that high school. And I think it's going to become more magnetic as time goes on.
I have a question as well. Allison, would you mind going back to the seabeds to end of year for Windsor High School?
Yeah.
1920.
Except it's freezing, so it might take a second.
Of course.
And while we're doing that, Rich, kind of to your point, our neighbors to the west over at Annalee and El Molino, which I know you're very familiar with as a graduate of El Molino, they had a meeting last night, hours-long meeting to discuss consolidation, because they've had lower enrollment every year for many, many more years than we've had because of fewer young families in the area attending the schools. So it's not just Windsor, it's everywhere in the county with our cost of housing and such. So.
No, I agree. I mean, it's a trend that's going to continue in Sonoma County. It's getting more and more expensive to live here. If a lot of us were young people just starting off in this county, we would be sucking fumes. So trying to get into a house here. So it's a challenge for sure. And yeah, I know that Emilino and Anley are looking to consolidate. My only request when I had it, some people call me and say, hey, what do you think about that? And I said, all I can tell you is if they do consolidate, they better make sure they take all the pictures of all the winning that we did at Emilino and keep those and put them together. So plus my hair was dark in those pictures and I looked pretty good then. So anyhow, but it's a reality of what's going to have to happen eventually. The real question is going to be whether they house them go to Emilino or they go to Anley, or who knows?
So I found my question. I just pulled up the PowerPoint in board docs.
Thanks, because mine's not interested in screen sharing.
No worries. So one of the questions I have is, I'm noticing that when we compare seabeds to end of year, most of the sites except one don't lose a lot of kids. The enrollment stays pretty consistent, except for Windsor High School. And so my first assumption was, oh, it must be the matriculation to North Bay Met and Windsor Oaks Academy. But if you look at North Bay Met and Windsor Oaks, they're not going up by the end of year. So for example, 1920 school year, that's 41 students. So, you know, a handful maybe were accounted for in Windsor Oaks and North Bay Met, but that's a lot of kids. And it happened in 1819 as well. So it begs the question, what's happening to Windsor High School students that they're not finishing the year, and where are they going? And I don't know the answer to that. Amy, I see your hand up. Do you have a theory?
Yes, I think it's important to remember the numbers at Windsor Oaks and to some degree at North Bay Met. Even though they're fairly consistent from start to finish, those are not the same students. There are students who graduate mid-year, and then more students from the high school go fill those slots. So that's I don't want to say revolving door, that's kind of a negative connotation, but the students go over to the alt ed program, they finish up, then they exit and there's room for more students. So the same seat is multiple kids.
No, that's true. I did think of that as well. But even when I think of the pictures on the wall in the office of the number of students who graduate and then it creates a new seat, it's not 40. And so I'd be very interested in starting to track that data more carefully to find out why kids don't finish the year at Windsor High School. That's a lot of ADA, right? In terms.
Right. And I think it would be a good study to find out at what point in the year do they leave? What's their exit date? And what grades is it? So is it just seniors not making it, or is it are students leaving as freshmen when they come into a high school and then decide a comprehensive high school is too big? So,
agree.
And many other possible reasons, but yeah, it is worth studying for sure.
I mean, the one thing that I took away from that graph, if it's the same one that we were thinking about, is over the last 2 or 3 years, the enrollment at the high school has gone down a bunch anyway. And so maybe we need to, as a board, have a discussion about what we need to do to keep our numbers up. You know, I don't know what the number is, if we have a waiting list anymore, or if we used to. I know we had a big waiting list. I don't know if we still do, but that might be something that we need to look at policy-wise as well.
I'd be interested to know if in addition to Callie in the middle school, we draw students that matriculate from the 8th grade from Windsor Christian Academy, the Healdsburg School, and Mark West, and a few private schools otherwise. But that we get a fairly good number of incoming freshmen from those schools. If their enrollment is declining, it's just, you know, trickling over to our 9th grade as well for enrollment. So it's worth looking at, and it's worth looking at broadly what's happening in our nearby districts as well, because typically we kept filling back up in our 9th grade, even though our 8th grades were getting smaller when the transfers coming in, Windsor not just inter districts, but Windsor residents coming back to the high school. We'd love to examine doing a little more advertising about the high school and its CTE programs and its cores, and now the Build Academy. We've got some dynamic programs, and I think we probably don't do enough to inform the county public about the programs we have.
I think to Amy's point, we've got two decisions, well, not two decisions to make, but two things to consider. One, if we continue down this trend, we got some really hard choices to make with regard to personnel, right? Because we can't support this number of personnel if we continue to decline. But to Amy's point, we do need to advertise. There's so much good that we have in Windsor that people don't necessarily know about. I'll go to North Bay Met. That's a program that very few know about, and it's unique to this county. Same with the course program at our high school. There's some competition, I guess, if you go way south, but that's not competition. So we are in a different kind of world where we could become regional, Rich, to your point. And I think we're going to have to really start to think differently about our advertising and increasing our enrollment outside of our Windsor residents.
I mean, part of my concern is not, I mean, it's twofold, but it goes together is, yeah, the high school kind of, if our numbers keep going down there regionally, our personnel, we'd be overstaffed for what we can offer. That's part of my problem. I don't want to see us, decrease what we offer. I mean, a lot of what, like Dr. Collins's presentation earlier on the Celebrating Success, if you want it, you can find it and achieve it here at Windsor. I never want us to lose that, whatever it is, math, science, arts, athletics. I want us to be able to continue to be, I want to say almost everything to almost everybody. And if our numbers go down, we won't be able to sustain that. So that's why I think we really need to start thinking strategically on how we can maintain our numbers and keep them at an operational level to where we can continue to offer all these awesome programs that really help change kids' lives. So, so you need the personnel, you need the programs, and we can't have either if we don't have the students. So advertising, and I think a lot of that advertising comes from like things like with, John earlier, and hey, we got great teachers here, great programs, great everything all the way around. We don't brag enough about what we have to offer. So I think that we should start to brag a little more.
I'm going to go to George first, and then Stephanie, and I'll make a closing comment unless there are others.
Just real quickly, I think maybe look at Windsor Middle, and the numbers are going down there annually, and the kids at Cali, the numbers are going up. So I think if the board focused on Windsor Middle, I know Principal Williams has talked to the board in the past about a STEM program, a robotics program, a culinary program. Maybe if Windsor Middle rebranded itself and became a charter school, maybe to get more kids in at the lower grade levels. And if you had more kids at the lower grade levels, 6, 7, 8, those kids would feed into the high school. So I think you got to focus on the younger grades, because those cohorts are small. Then the cohorts are going to be small at the high school. But he did talk about it in the past. I know it's not a simple decision tonight, but that's something the board might want to consider, is Windsor Middle being a charter, like Cali's a charter, and they already have robotics and culinary. And I think the principal is open to STEM, but obviously you got to have staff input, parent input, and there's more than just us talking about it tonight.
Just keep in mind that a charter, while it will help increase enrollment at the charter for the budget, it won't help the rest of the district, because that money stays with the charter only. So you lose that economy of scale with regard to providing services, which makes it a little tougher. It doesn't mean it's off the table, George, but just to think about.
But if it happened, you would have more kids at Windsor Middle in theory, and those kids would hopefully feed into the high school. Whereas if we do nothing, then the numbers are just declining.
Right.
Stephanie, you'd like to add something?
Yes. Allison, thanks for the presentation. I appreciate all of the colorful graphics. It's easy to follow and visually pleasing. And of course, thanks for your presentation component too. A couple of thoughts. I wanted to just go back and touch base on elementary school, because I noticed a decline to this year, and I think maybe that's connected to, at the younger grades, parents pulling their kids out of public school altogether because of the pandemic and wanting to make a go of homeschool this year. So that could potentially be an explanation for that, like, increase from Windsor Creek closing and then the sudden decline into this year, potentially. And then going back to the high school and the numbers in 11th and 12th grade, I think it's fascinating that those are the two grade levels where we have the highest number of students. I remember doing research when I was in the undergrad about kind of dropout rates, and you would see these schools where it was like started big in 9th grade, 10th grade, and then it would like dwindle down in 11th and 12th. And here in Windsor, we have the exact opposite. We have our 11th and 12th grade being very robust. So obviously students are coming here to graduate, which is awesome. And I wonder, and I think maybe 11th and 12th grade, is that correlated to students having driver's licenses potentially and being able to choose where they want to go to school? And does that mean that we have students choosing from outside of our community to come here and commute into our district? So I think that's a really interesting thing to consider, the student choice component of this. That's what it indicates to me, just looking at the numbers. And then with the train coming in, I think we passed measure, was it DD that has supplemental train funding? Could we connect advertising to our schools to the train and bringing people from other communities to Windsor? I mean, it's definitely walking distance from the high school, so that's easy. So could we potentially get, 9th and 10th grade a little bit increased because students could potentially get on the train and come here? I'm just something I thought of a little bit ago, but or could there be a shuttle that went from the train station to Windsor Middle School? And could we advertise that as, a safe way to send your kids to school in a different community and to give them more options if you're kind of in a more rural area or not satisfied with the school options that you have in your own community? That concludes my comments.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. I hadn't thought of the train. That's a wonderful idea. I think we'll be looking more into that if we can get some feedback on that in the future when that does actually start running. That's a good possibility. I wanted to kind of connect back about 5 minutes ago or so when Lisa was asking about the decline in 17-18 and then again this year in 19-20. And it's hard memories to bring up, but the fall of 17, the fall semester of 17 was the Tubbs fire. And although many of Windsor families didn't lose their homes, maybe they were coming from out of district, or maybe they had parents who were working other places and lost their jobs. And so we may have lost some families in our school district because of that. And so that was kind of a dip there that I could foresee maybe an issue countywide, but especially for us, maybe since we're so close to Coffee Park and some of the areas in Mark West area and things like that were so badly affected. And then this year, as Stephanie mentioned, the 19-20 school year, the transition there when COVID all began early in this, the 20 year, we may not have had the students finishing because they may have, like I said, like was mentioned, left school or attended a different school because of wanting to be closer to home and things like that. Even though it was all virtual at that time, parents weren't bringing their kids somewhere new that they may have been doing earlier, or the kids weren't driving to another site because they were staying home and doing distance learning from another school, or something like that. So I'm not trying to make reasons or excuses why things happen, but we've been through so much trauma over the last several years that it's hard for families to make a commitment that lasts from kindergarten through 12th grade. Things change so drastically from year to year. Those of us that have been in the community our whole lives, we see the ebb and flow of all the things that come and go for us, but families that are new or families that are struggling to begin with, and then they have these other trauma-informed practices, have to make some tough decisions. So hopefully we can get through some of these things and be more stable in the future, but just a little commentary about that. So. Anyone else? Mr. Stephaniscos, you're waiting patiently. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add onto the advertising of the district. We tend to try and compare ourselves to other districts, or we want to be like other districts. No, let's be unique. Let's celebrate what is different about Windsor and highlight those differences between us and other different districts, right? We have all these unique 11-12 programs. We have a bilingual immersion school. We have a culinary program that runs from 7th grade to 12th grade now. We have a lot of stuff going on. We're nestled in the wine country. If we reach out to local businesses for partnerships and trainings, you throw in what they're doing at North Bay Met, we have a lot of stuff, and I think we haven't highlighted those differences enough. I've heard Mr. Gansler, a former Windsor employee, doing radio ads. That's essentially a copy of our program, but it sounds great, in his ads.
Yes, I agree with a lot of that. I know maybe, I can't, the exact date, but maybe a year and a half ago, we put together a district newsletter that kind of highlighted some of our specialty programs, but I don't know how widely that was distributed. It was meant for realtors and it was meant for, the civic community groups and things like that, but I don't know to what extent that got passed around. But more of that is always going to be a positive as well. Sharing it.
Can I ask the question then from the board? If this is a direction, because we've talked a lot about advertising and there's probably going to be some costs associated with this. Is this a direction that you'd like me to start to explore more in? Because I can do that. I'd just like to know, this is kind of new. Not that we haven't talked about advertising and updating the website and whatnot, but this is really targeted. Do you want me to explore and then potentially bring back a proposal?
I think it's been an issue forever here in Windsor, as long as I've been on the board. And, I've seen a lot of superintendents come and go, and some were better than others in terms of advertising. I mean, it's a big job, but we haven't done a good job in the last 10 years or so, or even longer. I don't know. Okay. I agree with Pete's comments. We have a lot of good things going over the years living here in town. I've heard radio commercials for Rancho Cotati. I've heard radio commercials for Santa Rosa City Schools, but I don't think I've ever heard a radio commercial for Windsor Unified. And I don't know. I think it's something we should do and something that we should do every year.
Yeah, Stephanie, you'd like to add to that conversation?
I think Trustee Adams also raised his hand. Does he still want to go?
Yeah, I think the branding and a communication plan generally, Superintendent Decker, of which advertising is a part, is something we need to look at. I think George said it graciously about how we have fallen behind our peer institutions, but we need to look at that. I don't hear that it's been mentioned, depending on how it goes. 2020 and 2021 are census years, so we're at least going to get whatever it looks like, a snapshot about our community in a way that hasn't been available for a decade. And that may also provide us with some information. When we look at these cohorts going through, additional thing, I think to Stephanie Ahmad's point of 11th and 12th graders, I think we need to look back and say, what really is the 5 or 10 year arc of this? Because I think we'll find that we had larger cohorts and we're kind of at the end of those larger cohorts now. But I think branding and communication as a general emphasis is something we need to evaluate. I agree it costs money. I think it's a bang for your buck. It's an emphasis, and it's a way to, rather than look at balancing a budget and a structural deficit simply by cutting, it's a new revenue idea, right? And that's another reason why I think it takes money to make programs and make attendance in that way. So those are my points I wanted to share.
Yeah, and I would say, I'm just going to throw out a random number, not that I'm asking for this necessarily, but if you take the number of $50,000, 4 maybe into the 5 student range, if we gain 4 or 5 students, it pays itself out. Right. If we gain 10 or 20 or 100 students, it's money in the bank for us that way. Right.
Yeah, I was going to make the same point. I think the return on investment is really high with advertising, and I think it's just something we need to make part of our general plan, as Trustee Adams said, part of our communications plan, and do it consistently year after year. I think we did start the radio ads last year, and then now we haven't probably followed up with that. So we need to just make it, figure out what our message is, how we're going to market ourselves. And I think we have a lot, as Mr. Stefanisco said, to build on. That we have a lot that we can advertise because we're doing so much here. So
for sure. Okay.
And Mr. Stefaniscos in that wonderful Digital Media Academy and art building out there can maybe be a helpful resource for student production and things like that.
Yep, absolutely.
This will be a whole lot easier when we have,
on site.
Again, but the communication plan is understood and something I will look into.
I mean, Superintendent, just from a money standpoint, I think we do need to do it. And so I think Stephanie mentioned year after year, it needs to be an integral part of our program of what we do. But I think we could do that through a variety of through the real estate industry, getting those folks to partner up with us as a district to help that be part of their sales pitch, so we can get some of their money to come in and help with that. Like Eric just mentioned, and Stephanie too, that, if we pick up 4 or 5 students, that breaks even right there at a $50,000 clip. But I think we could do even more with that money and co-op with other groups that are in the real estate industry and other industries as well, about talking about, the construction industry. We might be able to help them. I mean, they might be able to help us with our build program and the different programs we have, go out and get maybe sponsors that can help us to keep those folks coming in as well. So I think that, yes, we want to do advertising. I don't know that radio is, I don't know what kind of bang for our buck we get there. I mean, I always keep hearing about how social media is more and more of the way how things get out there. Maybe we can do a lot in the social media area that doesn't cost a lot to advertise per se, but we might need to have somebody who's kind of a coordinator that will stay on top of that. So anyhow, I think there's a lot of good ideas, but I think everybody's on board with wanting to do something along those lines.
I'll commit to developing some sort of communications plan that has advertising in it. And we'll bring that back. It won't be, it won't be soon that I'll bring that back, but within a couple of months, most likely, that I'll bring that back before the board.
And Ms. Ziegler, you had your hand up. You'd like to make a comment before we close this item?
Sure. The other thing that we always want to consider is the enrollment deadlines at some of the nearby private schools, because this is where families are trying to make decisions, and decide whether they're coming to a public school or a private school. And those schools do have pretty tight deadlines.
That's good to be noted as well. And especially this year with the economy the way it is, we may not have as many families choosing to opt to pay for public school or pay for private school. So we may see an influx all around the county with the public schools gaining some of those private school kids that may not be attending. Any last minute comments? I'd like to give everybody an opportunity, but again, thank you, Allison Griggs, for the great report. We got quite a bit of a tangent after your report, but it was good to have that discussion. So you got us thinking. That's a good thing. So
Good. Thank you.
all right. So we'll move on. Item 7 in our agenda is in the discussion and action portion. So item 7.1 is consideration of approval for the Windsor High School Automotive Technology and Welding eBooks. Director Saxon, could you help us with some new technology textbooks for these programs?
Yeah, so along the lines of growing Windsor High School and CTE programs and excitement, it is time to purchase some textbooks for our auto and welding courses. There's been a little bit of a shift that Amy Ziegler will share with us with regard to availability of ebooks versus hard copies. And I'll let her explain that, and then let you all ask any questions, specifics that you may have with regard to the recommendation to purchase these books. Take it away, Amy.
So as you can see on the documents, we're requesting books for the welding program, which is currently 5 sections at the high school, and an automotive class, which is 2 levels within 1 section. And the books we have are from the 90s, and we're trying to help students have a more modern experience. So the instructor has requested new textbooks, updated textbooks. And he's looked around. We have good textbooks. So he started by looking at the current publishers, most recent editions, and he settled on a book for each of those. We actually have 2 levels in each of these pathways. They're complete pathways. And so the book that he's chosen is actually a book that will carry through both levels. So we wouldn't need a different textbook. But one of the things I've been working with the publishers, trying to get access to online editions to publish or to post for the examination time for the public. And I did hear back from one of the publishers that they currently don't have an ebook for the welding So we are working with them to try to have an e-version available in terms of even if we're just taking the chapters and putting them on PDF so that our students can actually access them from home on their Chromebooks. But I talked with the instructor a little bit about not having an ebook, and he says these are very hands-on students, and for the most part, they really want the physical book anyway. So he wasn't too worried that there wasn't an ebook in particular. And if there became an ebook available, we would certainly investigate adding that license onto our textbook. So what we're looking at is bringing this to you as this in the cycle of textbook adoption, because these do become the primary textbook for these courses.
Are there any questions for Vice Principal Ziegler about the ebooks?
Nope.
Okay.
I move approval of this. This is the first read, and then it'll come back on consent like they usually do.
No, that's for courses. Textbooks, we just do one.
Yeah, this will be our approval.
Okay.
So
I'll take the first motion.
You'll take the second, George. Thank you. So we have a first by Trustee Adams, second motion by Trustee Valenzuela. All those in favor of approving the Windsor High School Automotive Technology and Welding books, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So we're a 5-0. Great. So let's get those books in the hands of the kids. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving down. We're into our routine information under item 8. Item 8.1 is response to board and community requests. Has anybody received a special request that they'd like to mention tonight? Okay, how about item 2, board correspondence? We did receive a couple things after our meeting last night, but we'll have staff address those. So that's good information. Item 8.3 are staff association reports. I see that Brad Freeland is with us, as well as Pete Stephaniscos. I see Pete already has his mic open, so we'll let him begin if he's ready, and then we'll have Brad after.
I just wanted to share that we just finished the second part of the countywide conference and distance learning and trying to improve it. And it was a really good couple of days over a couple of weeks. And so secondary will be working on that. But I was happy to be a part of it. And I think, it'll produce some good results.
And I appreciated your comments. You were quoted in the Press Democrat, you and Superintendent Decker as well. So Windsor was well represented in that article and shows that we're doing our best to make things work. Next up, Brad Freeland, representing the classified employees. You have something to share tonight, Brad?
No, actually, I have no report for tonight.
Okay, well, thank you for attending and participating on your device there. Item 8.4 are the unresolved policies. Director Saxon, have we had a chance to look through some of that since it's been a while?
We have.
How big is our stack?
It's thick, but we have one packet that's just about ready. We're just waiting for one more policy to come back on that one, and then we'll be ready for a policy subcommittee meeting.
And so we have policies that come from the California School Board Association that they ask us to review probably quarterly, something like that. And so when those come in, we review and see if we need to make changes to our board policies and such. So we have a subcommittee that does that. And we look to meet on that before we reorganize, or potentially we'll keep the same group and have them work toward the next layer of those policies that come through. Item 8.5, items of general interest. Anything someone would like to mention or things they've heard about for the community? I know that we've had, maybe Stephanie, you could mention the We Foundation had a project last couple weeks here for Halloween and stuff. Are they planning some more?
Yeah, well, I think there was a town trick-or-treating event. The We Foundation participated. Boosters was also there. So there was quite a bit of school tangential representation at that event. Charlie Brown Grove is coming up, and I know we're doing a tree as a school board. And then the We Foundation has its scholarship fundraiser virtual this year coming up on February 25th with Mike McGuire emceeing again. So look out for that.
Great, and I'm sure we'll get a report as we get closer, an invitation to members of the community. I know the boosters also have some dine and donate things that are scheduled. I don't have their exact dates in front of me, but I'm sure that will be advertised on the high school marquee, the digital marquee, and then they have a booster website and an email list that goes out to all the membership. I just couldn't find the email quickly enough to talk about it tonight, but look for, I think, Pizzeria and one or two others that are coming up in the next month or so. Let's see. Item 8.6 are future school board items. We have a list there. If there's anything someone would like to add or recommend for the future, I see Rich got a quick hand there. What can you share with us, Rich?
I'd like to see if we could have a discussion about fitting out our school board meetings. And what I mean by that is, instead of having 2 or 3 meetings a month, maybe we just have one board meeting in the beginning of the month. Maybe we take some of our celebrating successes and we consolidate them, put them together, maybe have that meeting or in a meeting that's like on one of the second in the month or whatever. We would keep it a little separate. Our meetings they seem to be getting shorter, but we seem to be getting more of them now. And so my thought is, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there for everybody else to start thinking about, but a lot of our meeting in the beginning is we could do a lot of that stuff instead of at 2 meetings, we could do it 1. I just would like to discuss it, think about it logistically, talk with Lois, Lisa, and see what are we statutorily needing to do, certain meetings that we need to do certain things at regularly scheduled meetings. But I think with a little bit of work, I think we could I think we could do very well, but still only have maybe 1 board meeting a month. And then we would always have that second Tuesday or the third Tuesday that if we needed to roll something over, we could schedule a meeting. Our schedules are such that we do things pretty quick. But I just kind of get this feeling that we could do our jobs very well, but I think we could do it with having 1 meeting. Maybe that meeting might be a half an hour longer once a month, but I don't know if anybody else is interested in consolidating some of the things we do and maybe have a meeting where our board meets once a month. And then we have some auxiliary meetings that are for specific purposes at different times. But some of the meetings that we have, they seem like they take a certain period of time only because there's a certain period of time that needs to get filled. And I think we could do a pretty good job, but I just kind of get a feeling we could do an excellent job, but we don't need to have quite so many meetings. We could maybe put some of those things together. I don't know. I don't know if anybody else is interested in maybe discussing that or looking at it down the road, and not very far down the road, but I think we could do a pretty good job. Actually, I think we do an excellent job, but we don't need to have quite as many meetings, and didn't know how anybody else felt about that.
George, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with Rich, but it doesn't matter because I'm the short timer here. So maybe you could talk about that once you get Molly on the board. But I think for my 2 cents, I think that's what I'm going to be remembered by, my 2 cents. A district our size needs to have 2 board meetings, in my opinion, because there's so much work that needs to come before the board. And when I worked for Santa Rosa City Schools, they had 2 board meetings. When you look at small districts like Calistoga, they have 1 board meeting. So I don't know. I mean, Jeremy and Lois would probably give a better answer. But my question was, I was looking at the agenda and I didn't see superintendent's report. I'm sorry I was late to the meeting. I had connectivity issues. Did Superintendent Decker give a report and I missed it, or it wasn't even listed on the agenda?
There hasn't been a superintendent's report listed since I've been here in Windsor, I don't believe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Add it starting next meeting.
Yeah, it should be on there. Usually when you get down to routine information, buried in there is a superintendent's report. And sometimes the board president moves the superintendent's report up before public comment. So maybe it got dropped accidentally. Anyway, I don't want to cause more problems. I'm done.
Yeah, I think we kind of got away from that because Superintendent Decker was giving the reopening reports and all the different informational items about COVID and all that. And it just kind of got slipped through that the first several meetings he gave reports in that respect, but hasn't had one lately since we made the decision to push school back to at least January. Thank you for reminding us about that.
Yeah, touching on Trustee Carnation's point on the meetings, I think they've definitely gotten shorter. I think we were meeting until maybe 9:30 pretty frequently. In the past, I think maybe before Superintendent Decker started, and they've seemed to have come down in length of time. So I'd definitely be willing to consolidate our general meetings if staff and administration and district leadership feel that we can properly plan and make sure that we can get all of the items in the meetings where we need to get them. Because I know sometimes we need flexibility with specific dates and deadlines, but maybe we can start that with our new term coming up in January, or kind of, I guess the first one is the end of December, but in January. And then I had a follow up on an earlier point, sorry to bring us back to the school demographic data, but I was wondering, Superintendent Decker, could you, or potentially Ms. Saxon, find out, or Ms. Griggs, whoever is the appropriate person, how many of our 11th and 12th graders are from out of district? Because Trustee Adams brought up a really good point that it could just be earlier cohorts that were larger. And I would really like to know so that I think it would be helpful to work from the accurate data. So if we could find out how many of those students are out of district, we'll know kind of how many are coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, we
should have that.
Our district report that we did earlier this year and give you that data.
Perfect.
And just to speak to the board meeting, so I think a good place to really have this discussion is the governance workshop that we're going to have planned. So maybe, but you got to have your calendar approved prior to that. So maybe we would look at approving one meeting per month, but then discuss how that's going to work at a governance workshop that we'll have after Malinale comes on board. I think if we were going to do I think one meeting is doable potentially. We would probably have to reorganize the way that we do this agenda though.
Okay, so we can, like was mentioned, we do have a workshop planned for when we have our new trustee come on. Trustee Lopez will be taking Trustee Valenzuela's spot as he chose to step down after 12 great years of service, and we'll recognize him here in the future. But we do have some reorganization to do. We'll choose new officers and new commitments and things at our December 15th meeting. So it was mentioned that we potentially could have one meeting a month. And this is one of those situations where we do only have one meeting a month planned. So mostly because our next meeting would fall just right prior to the Thanksgiving break. So we will not be meeting again later in November unless something comes up that we need to make some special meeting situations for. We do have a meeting planned for December 1st. We mentioned last night in our workshop on the budget that hopefully our staff is able to get everything ready. It was made mention on an email today that all the information for a future December 1st meeting would need to be organized by November 20th, which is much earlier than normal. So hopefully everything that needs to be on that first meeting can get done early. At this time, finishing up all of our agenda items, unless there's something else that needs to be mentioned, I would take a motion for adjournment, item 9.1.
Is this George's last meeting?
No, George will be with us December 1st.
Oh, okay. I was gonna suggest we let George send us off. I'll make the
I'll
motion.
bring some fireworks for the last meeting, I guess.
Okay, so Trustee Carnation makes the first motion of adjournment. I will make the second motion for adjournment. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And I don't think anybody's opposed. If they want to stay, they can. We'll chat, but I'm getting a 5-0 vote on that. And we will look forward to meeting again December 1st. Thank you all for attending tonight. Thank you, Brad, for setting up our YouTube. and have a good month. Everybody be safe out there.